Good afternoon, everybody. A very warm welcome to this afternoon's webinar. I hope you're doing well, whichever part of Scotland you are in. I know from some of the participants that I think everyone is in Scotland. We did a webinar last week where we had actually people from America and actually Wales joining us, which is absolutely great. But I know that all the participants, I think, are from Scotland. But if you're not from Scotland, you're still welcome anyway. So warm welcome to you. I'm in kind of Kinrossshire, and I'm just kind of filling in while we wait for more people to fill in case you think, have I come into the wrong webinar? Why is this person talking? So I'm just filling in while we've got more people joining us. So warm welcome to you. My name's Brian, and I'm the development manager with Hourglass Scotland, which is an organisation based across Scotland, obviously. And we used to be known as Action on Elder Abuse Scotland. So we are an organisation that tries to safeguard and protect the well-being of older people. So I hope you can all hear me and see me okay, and that you'll sit back and relax. These webinars are all part of our theme of safer ageing, and we had a whole week of them last week, ranging from power of attorney and guardianship to today's one, which is all about the role of a carer, which is also very important in keeping older people safe. So I hope you'll enjoy the session. The session will last approximately 1 hour. It may finish a little bit shorter, but that's absolutely fine. If you do have any questions, please submit them at the beginning, or submit them anytime. It doesn't have to be at the beginning, but submit them in the chat box or the Q&A box. That's absolutely fine, and I'll be picking them up. So don't worry if your presenter looks like she's just carrying on and ignoring your questions. It's not that at all. It's just that obviously there's lots going on, so I'll make sure those questions do get picked up, and we can certainly ask them at the end, I think. So I'm hoping a few people are still joining us. So I don't think there's very much else to say, apart from to say our organisation is very much about keeping older people safe and trying to keep them protected. Because we've done some research recently, or done a resurvey, I should say, and we discovered that they reckon that at least 1 in 5 older people think there's some form of abuse. They've been abused in some way. And that equates to about 2.7 million people over across the whole of the UK. So I think you'll agree that is obviously a huge issue and a huge problem. So that's just to kind of give you a little bit of context. So as I say, Hourglass used to be known as Action on Elder Abuse Scotland. Just want to make sure that was clear. So anyway, you've not tuned in to see me talking or hear me talking. So I will hand over to our presenter. Absolutely delighted to welcome Tracy Cooper, who will do an introduction from vocal. She'll do the bulk of the presentation. I'll come back to you at the end, so I'll disappear for now, and then Tracy will take over and do the presentation. But if you've got any questions, feel free to add them in the chat box, and I'll make sure that Tracy gets them. So thank you very much, and over to you, Tracy, and thank you for coming over.
Great. Thanks very much, Brian, and thanks for having me. I'll wait for you to unshare if you don't mind, and then I'll share my screen.
Good
so
point.
Just give you a minute to do that.
There you go.
And thank you. Right. So I'm gonna talk about the role of the carer in keeping older people safe. So as Brian said, my name is Tracy Cooper. I work for Vocal, which is Voice of Carers across Lothian. We support carers in Edinburgh and Midlothian. But I'll talk about, if you're not in Edinburgh or Midlothian, where else you can access support. But today's presentation, I thought what I'd look at first is actually self-care for carers. Because before as a carer you can keep someone else safe, I think self-care is such a vital part of that, and ensuring that you're well in yourself and able to act in a way that can keep someone safe. So we're going to look at self-care for a little bit, and then we're going to come on to a little bit about carers' rights and things that you can do to ensure safety for both yourself and the person you care for. So hopefully that sounds okay. Please do put questions in the chat, and Brian will make sure they get to me, and I'll leave some space at the end of the presentation so we can have some questions. So hopefully that will all work out okay. So I'll start by kind of getting you to think about, when I say carer, what comes to mind? Because lots of people misinterpret what a carer is. And I should say that the carers that Vocal represents and the carers that we work with are unpaid carers. So we're looking at people who are taking care of their friends, their family, their neighbours, their relatives. And the main part of being a carer is you're helping to take care of someone who couldn't manage to live independently without the carer's help. You don't have to live with the person you care for. The person you care for might also be in a care home, so you might be involved in caring in different ways. So there's lots of ways that people are carers. And I always start these presentations as well by saying you yourself may be a carer, you may not be a carer, you may be a carer but you hadn't really thought of it before. So again, if you need help or further information or support, I can signpost you um, at the end. But carers care for a variety of situations. Parents caring for children with additional support needs. You could be caring for your spouse, your partner. You could be caring for your adult child for a range of different reasons. You could be caring for someone with a mental health or addiction. There's lots of different reasons why people care, and there's lots of different ways people find their way into caring. Um, and it's important that we set the scene by talking about who is a carer. Excuse me, sorry. So what do carers do? Carers help out the people they care for with lots of different things. They could be practical tasks like cooking, housework and shopping. Could be physical support, lifting, helping someone up the stairs, helping someone with their physiotherapy exercises. It could be the personal care aspects. Maybe somebody needs help to get washed and dressed, or they need help to use the toilet. Could be managing the budget, collecting benefits, doing all the paperwork, getting the prescriptions. So it could be highly kind of just practical tasks that need done, giving medication. And finally, carers are providing emotional support, making sure that the person they care for isn't lonely, has access to services, and is able to get what they need. So carers do a lot, and carers provide a massive range of support. And this may not be everybody's caring journey. They may be providing different needs to different people. They may not have to provide all these needs, but some of these needs, some carers care alongside care packages of professional carers coming in. But it's important to be aware of this. And going back to the theme of safety and keeping older people safe, um, I want you to think a bit about, and this might be your situation, or it might not be, it might be, carers doing physical tasks such as lifting and helping someone up the stairs. How do carers know how to do this, and how do they learn how to do this? So in some of the other work I do with professionals, there's a strong emphasis placed on involving carers in the care, because that's a vital part of keeping the people they care for safe. Um, Coronavirus. It's hard to do a session without mentioning coronavirus, but actually, the coronavirus is having a massive impact on carers. Everything from increasing their loneliness and isolation, changing the way they care, and bringing on all sorts of challenges. And we think about carers trying to keep other people safe. The carer also needs to focus on keeping their own self safe. And this is where the challenges come in for carers, um, because many carers have told us that the time they've spent caring and the challenges they've spent or they've experienced while caring throughout coronavirus, there's been a dramatic increase. That worry, what if I get coronavirus, and what if I pass it on to my spouse? What if I pass it on to my dad? What if I pass it on to the person I'm care for? Um, so carers have been trying to keep the people they care for safe, and especially in terms of older people that they care for. But there's also that's been having a negative impact on them as well, and the rising levels of care and the challenges. So I want you to think, and maybe you've experienced some of these challenges, um, and if you're experiencing these yourselves, I mean, Vocal's all about protecting and supporting the carers and helping them thrive in their caring role. But if you think about how carers, the support that carers need in order to keep the people they care for safe, as a massive, massive task. And the act of caring is no small feat at all. So I want to talk about self-care for carers, because carers keeping themselves safe is a vital part of keeping other people safe. Um, and if you're a carer yourself and you're sitting there thinking, I don't have time to prioritize self-care, I've got to manage the budget, do the shopping, do the personal care, I've got so many things to do, to keep the older person safe, I want you to stop for a minute and think, what happens if you burn out? What happens if you reach that critical level of exhaustion, which many carers have come on and told us they have reached? So it is important to think about self-care because, as we say, you can't pour from an empty cup, and you'll struggle to keep someone else safe if you're burnt out to the point of exhaustion and on the brink of, just really being absolutely exhausted and challenged in services. So you do need to make time for self-care, which I know is always a hard thing to say to people when they're thinking, yeah, making time for self-care seems like a great idea, but I just don't have the time. So we won't have a discussion in this, but if you want to pop something in the chat, go ahead, and maybe Brian could feedback at the end, or you can just take a quiet minute to think, what does self-care mean to you? Because it means different things to other people. So I could tell you what it means to me, but part of learning to take care of yourself and learning how that impacts on keeping the person you care for safe is taking a minute to stop and think, actually, what does that mean to me? Um, In terms of self-care for carers, some of the questions we ask are around what has worked in the past to help you deal with such stressful situations. So actually taking that time out to think, do you know, before my caring role, I used to go for a walk every morning at 7 a.m. That was my thing. And trying to work out, is there ways of bringing that back? Um, we can't access some of our normal self-care methods. So, you can't get to the gym, you can't get to the cinema, but are there alternatives online? Are there, is there a chance to, say, actually, do you know, I've always wanted to try this hobby. I met someone today who was telling me that they've taken up a new musical instrument and they're just working with it on YouTube. But if you can't access your normal self-care methods, are there alternatives online? There's lots of entertainment available online. That's been one bonus, dare I say it, but one small silver lining of the coronavirus pandemic is, the amount of operas and ballets and performances that we've never had access to in the past, or the access has been limited to many of us in the past, are now available online. So can that help provide emotional safety for you or the person you care for? Can that give you both a bit of a break? Um, is that it really is just about preparing and thinking about what you need to do in your situation. And like I say, it's about thinking about, as a carer, vital to keep the person I care for safe is I have to be able to take some time to care for myself as well. So the winter months, the winter months can affect us physically and mentally. So again, I want you to stop and think about, what do you do to take care of yourself in the winter? And what do you do to take care of the person you care for in the winter? And that's the challenge for carers is, quite often they put their own needs second and they put the needs of the person they care for first. So you're checking in on your elderly parent, elderly neighbor, or even your spouse perhaps, and making sure that they've had a hot meal and a hot drink and that the house is warm enough and they've gotten some kind of interaction and social and they've got their appointments organized and they've got this and they've got that. But what do you do to look after yourself in the winter? And what do you do to look after the person you care for? What do you eat? Food comes and plays a big part on this. How do you encourage exercise? We'll look at a bit of the themes a bit more. Um, so of course, part of keeping the older person safe and yourself safe, exercise could be. Now, I'm going to caution, of course, to say that obviously you know your situations and you know that that person that you care for safe. So it's possible that not all forms of exercise are suitable. It's possible as well that getting out and about is not good idea, especially in the ice and the snow and the slush. So when I say exercise, it is about knowing your own situation and seeking the appropriate professional guidance on this. Um, but there is a huge amount of free content available. So if your doctor gives you the go ahead, and if their doctor gives you the go ahead, you might want to try an activity from YouTube. There's heaps of content on YouTube, or getting in touch with various fitness agencies. The nice thing about this as a self-care exercise is you can, as an exercise for as an exercise in self-care, is you can make it flexible. So you could do this in time that suits you around your caring role, or you could do it as part of a, if you don't live with, or even if you do live with the person you care for, but if you live with the person you care for, don't live with the person you care for, can be a bonding exercise, a fun activity to do together, give yourself a bit of a laugh. Quite often for these things, you don't need equipment, or you can just head out for a walk. But again, like I say, that has to be based on, I always feel like I need to come with that disclaimer of it's up to you what will work for you and to seek the professional guidance. Um, and taking care of yourself and doing your exercise in your own home is no one will see you, so it doesn't matter what you look like. Um, I think that's an important part for all of us. I don't know about you, but I'm not keen on fitness classes. But I'd rather just do it in my living space and close my curtains so my neighbours can't see what's going on, or how red in the face and out of breath I am and trying to do a sit up. So taking care of yourself. Um, for your own self and for the person you care for, our diet plays a massive role in self care. So again, I'm going to refer you on to things like the NHS Live Well website, and um, dietitians or whoever you've got else supporting you to find out what you should be eating or what the person you care for should be eating. Um, because what we eat and drink has a major impact on our energy levels and how we feel. And unfortunately, the crisps, cakes, biscuits, sweets category, which is my favourite food group, is the category that we're supposed to have very little of course, and limit ourselves. Um, in the winter, though, and this is important both for you and the person you care for, about staying hydrated, about drinking water, trying to limit our alcohol consumption. And again, you know, hot drinks can be an important part of keeping ourselves feeling warm as well. Um, a key part of self care is trying to relax, and this can be really hard when we're all juggling so much and coming up to the festive season where it just seems everything is busier, even though we maybe won't be doing as much visiting as we usually do. But taking some time to pause and relax. And I really like the image on the top left hand corner, the mindful or mindful. And if you've got a full mind as a carer, which you quite often do, because not only are you thinking about your own self and your own schedule, but you're thinking of someone else and someone else's schedule and someone else's needs. And have I remembered to collect that prescription? Have I remembered to do this? Is someone coming in? What about? What about? And we've got so much in your mind that actually, when you reach that overwhelming breaking point, is when we all make silly mistakes. I've had a really busy week and a really, awful start to the week, and it's amazing. Just I couldn't find a note that I had written, and then I was really wound up about this note, and I had to stop and take a minute and say, right, you need to take stock and just take, a couple deep breaths. And as carers, that's also something that you need to remember to do, is take a few minutes, connect with your surroundings around you, or even just kind of do some breathing exercises. So there's a link to that on there, and just try to calm down. Because again, if as a carer, if your mind is full and if you're feeling overwhelmed, it's harder to keep the person you care for and an older person safe and to be connected. So there's some apps that we've had recommended to us by various organisations. Three Good Things is a journal, so there might be something in here that you'll be able to have a look at that will be able to help you out. And of course, keeping yourself safe and keeping someone else safe. Technology can be a wonderful thing. Brian and I were talking earlier before we started just about how the technology has been great, and being able to run sessions like this. And sure, we'd like to be able to get back to face-to-face interaction, but in the meantime, this is the best of the situation, because it can reduce isolation and anxiousness. And I've been teaching people how to use Zoom I've spent the past kind of 6 months doing learn to Zoom courses so people can keep in touch with their friends and family, and it is an important part. Sometimes the pressure to stare at a screen and have a chat is too much, but actually, what about a shared activity, a quiz or a cook along? So that can be some self care for you. It could be I'm gonna have a chat with my family and we're gonna do this family quiz or family cook along, or it could be for the person that you care for. So a lot of these tips work for both. Now, of course, as much as our screen connections are great, non-screen connections are also great. And I received a letter in the post the other day, like an actual letter, handwritten personal letter, and I cannot tell you the joy that I experienced because nobody sends things in the post. Um, or sorry, very few people send things in the post, but actually feeling connected to a friend in Canada who I haven't spoken to in ages, it was just such a nice feeling. So um, a key part for keeping yourself safe is keeping yourself connected, but also we know that winter and the isolation in winter is really hard, especially on our older population. So, in terms of older and aging people, is there things that you can do to keep them safe by encouraging connection through that? And of course, hobbies. Take some time out, whatever it is. Are you a dancer? Are you a sewer? Are you a musician? Are you a painter? And I don't mean you have to be good at any of these. It's all about doing something that makes you happy and something that you enjoy doing. Because it can take your mind off of things, and like I say, just give you a chance to empty your mind and relax a bit as well, which will give you a break from caring and just give you that few minutes to reconnect. Which is why when um, when we talk about when people come to us and say, "Oh, I'm really stressed out," and that's one of the questions we often say is, what can you do to give yourself a break, or what did you used to enjoy, and can you get back into that? So there's lots of things to do. I know some people find it harder to find hobbies in the winter, but they're out there knitting, jigsaw puzzles, dominoes, games, just finding ways to keep yourself busy just for a few minutes a day will just help your situation, hopefully. Um, oh, I thought I took this slide out. Apologies, we've already talked about this, but we'll just do a quick recap about, so what can you do to look after yourself and the person you care for in the winter? Think about opportunities for exercise. Think about opportunities for healthy eating. Think about ways of keeping mentally well. Think about hobbies and activities you can do, knitting, reading, games. And all of these are about your own self care, but also caring for the person you care for. I'm going to skip over these slides just because I'm conscious of time. And I want to jump in a bit around the rights of the carer. Because carers carers provide a lot of things support for people, and I'm sure you maybe do know or maybe don't know that carers do have protected rights in Scotland under the Carer Scotland Act, and being aware of these rights and what you can access because of the Carer Scotland Act um, is really important about keeping yourself and the person you care for safe. So the Carer Scotland Act 2016 became official legislation in 2018, and the Act extends and enhances the rights of carers to help improve their health and well-being. And the part of the Act that I think is really vital is it so that carers can continue to care if they wish, but it's also about having a life alongside caring. So this Carer Scotland Act is about thinking, right, what is it that's important to carers and how do we keep our carers safe so they can keep other people safe? Um, there is a carers charter as part of the Act which sets out the rights of carers, but I've chosen two specific ones to focus on today. Um, all carers have the absolute right to an adult carer support plan, and your local authority must offer this to anyone that they identify as a carer. And then likewise, even if your local authority hasn't identified you as a carer, I'll tell you how to find out how to do this. But you can also say, I'm a carer, I need a plan. The plan's always prepared in partnership and it takes into account your personal outcomes. So it kind of goes back to that, it's a bit buzzwordy question, but still quite vital, that what matters to you as a carer. Um, an adult carer support plan, though, also includes an emergency plan so that if something happened to you or the person you care for, it's noted what should happen and there's that emergency plan in place. It sets out the practical arrangements for a short term and unplanned circumstance where the carer is unable to fill their caring role. So remember earlier when I said about coronavirus and carers thinking, carers worry about what happens if I get coronavirus, who's going to care for the person I care for. An emergency plan would detail that. Um, and this is a vital part of keeping, especially if you're caring for someone, this is a vital document. If you do not have an emergency plan but you would like to get one, that link at the bottom of the screen from Enable Scotland, you can read up more. Vocal, my colleagues run a course on how to do it, but they don't run it that often. But all the forms that you need and all the information you need is on the Enable website, and I'll be sure that you know where to find additional information to do that. An emergency plan is relevant to all carers, irrespective of the age of the carer, the age of the person they care for, the health needs, the disability that the cared for person has. So it is for absolutely anybody who's a carer. Emergency planning. So I think we are. So it's legislated in Scotland, but I do believe that emergency planning is available all across the UK. Though I think everyone here today is coming at this from a Scotland angle. So when you've got your emergency plan, it should be kept in your home and also the home of the person you care for if you don't live with the person you care for, because you don't have to. Quite often, once you've made your emergency plan, it gets filed on the social work system in local authority areas, so that it's known where it is. But you should also make sure your emergency contacts know where the plan is kept, because, like I say, that totally dictates what should happen, the care needs, and is also important part, especially if you're the person you care for maybe can't advocate as well for themselves. So it sets out, what needs to happen and the important part. So it's a key element in keeping everyone safe. You may also want to think about a carer's emergency card. Edinburgh, if you're in Edinburgh, Vocal, we produce one that you can carry with you. But if you're not in Edinburgh, contact your local carer centre because they'll know how you get a hold of one, and most people have it. And it's a good idea for the person that you care for to carry their card as well. So as a carer, you carry one in your wallet to your purse. So if anything happens to you, somebody finds it and they know that you care for somebody who relies on you. Likewise, if something happens to the person that you care for, they can figure out, they know who to call in case of an emergency. It's in a case of emergency card. So in Edinburgh, like I say, Vocal produces one, and the Edinburgh Council also keep one on file, and social care can step in if the emergency contacts are unavailable. So if you're Edinburgh based, that's the Edinburgh Council number to help with that. But if you're not Edinburgh based, contact your local carer centre. I'm just going to mention this because I think it's relevant, and a really critical part of keeping someone safe actually is as part of the Carers Charter, one of the rights carers have is the right to be involved in the hospital discharge of the person they care for. And this could be vital because if the person you care for has been in hospital for one reason or another, could be lots of different reasons, in order to make sure that they are kept safe, and when they come home or when they go back to their care home, the carer should absolutely have that understanding of what happened, have that understanding and that involvement as well. So Carers do have a right. I do training with hospitals to remind them of that and work with them on how to inform carers and how to support carers. Because health boards have a responsibility to let you know as a carer that they're sending home the person you care for and what the plan is once that person's home, and to make sure that you feel comfortable enough to care once they're no longer in the hospital, that you understand what to do. So if you're in Edinburgh, you can contact Vocal for carer support, but the national organisation to go to, and if you don't know who your local carer support centre is, if you go onto the Care Information Scotland website, you'll be able to find this. There is actually all sorts of practical information on there about carer self-care, about carers' rights, about powers of attorney and next of kin. There's a wealth of information on there. So I've really done a quick introduction and a quick scratching of the surface, but it's important to know that that care information site is there. And like I say, you most likely want to access support services in your local area. Um, in Edinburgh, and just to give you an idea of what some of the carer support services are able to do, we've got a team in the office that provides general carer support, including SDS, which stands for self-directed support, which is funding that carers can access. It's typically related to breaks or to help them improve in their caring role. At Vocal, we have a specialist team as well that supports people who are caring for somebody with an addiction. That's important. I don't know if all carer centres have that, but we do at ours. Most carer centres also run a range of financial and legal surgeries, and quite often these are provided at no cost or minimal cost to carers, and it's around vital topics. I didn't go into becoming a carer that much, but you don't know what you don't know until you don't know it, and you need to know it about what benefits am I entitled to. And in terms of keeping older people safe, if you think of financial situations or ensuring that they're claiming all the benefits that they're enabled to claim, sometimes you need a bit of support. So we do run, in partnership with a law firm, we run financial and legal surgeries. We provide a counselling service for carers as well. We also have peer mentors who help provide peer support. But our free counselling service it's an accredited counselling service, registered counsellors, but it's about helping people get to grips with the caring role and understand, and well, it's whatever people need to work on actually. But it's that emotional support that sometimes carers need. We can provide short breaks and learning events. Some of our learning events are information sessions. You do have to be in Edinburgh middle of the end to come along. But some of our learning events are things like dementia or how to reduce your bills or energy efficiency. And some of them are more social learning events. So I ran an online craft group yesterday where we had about 20 carers come on to make a Christmas craft just as a social event to help support them. And again, that's a bit of peer support. And so we get lots of carer centres across Scotland are offering these services. So that's just a wee plug for ours. But I would wholeheartedly encourage you to get in touch with your local centre and see what they offer. Because chances are they'll be able to support you and also offer advice on how to keep the person you care for safe if you've got any concerns. So I went through that actually faster than I thought I would. I think that's the difference when I can't see you. So hopefully that wasn't too quick, but I'm interested to know what the chat was. And there's my details if anyone wanted to get a hold of me. Or the Vocal Centre, you can just email the centre email. But yeah, I'm interested to know, Brian, what the chat was and if there's any questions.
Yeah, I can do that. People have been giving some really useful advice about. You can hear me, okay? Yeah, stop. Yep. Useful advice. Let's have a look and go through some of the useful advice people about looking after themselves. Knowing yourself first as a person. Someone's put up as a comment about how important that is to kind of looking after yourself and knowing yourself and what you know. That's a very good point, I guess. Enough sleep and a good diet. That's a good thing. I'm sure that'd be good as well. Someone says about something called Calm, which is £29 a year. An Insight Timer has lots of free content. They're both really good and have bedtime stories as well as mediation and mindfulness. What I should have said, actually, if anyone actually wants to speak, there is a facility on this webinar for actually letting people. So if anyone wants to indicate and say they've got something, rather than find it easier to speak rather than type, that's absolutely fine. Just indicate who you are and I can allow that. But in the meantime, Calm. Do you know anything about that, Tracy? Calm?
I don't, so it must be an app. I do feel like I've heard of it, but I've not used it. I mean, there's heaps and heaps of them out there, so it is about finding one that works for you. And I know there are lots of good recommendations on places like Health and Mind's website has got some great activities and exercises. And some good recommendations for apps, and yeah, is meditation and mindfulness. I quite like the idea of a bedtime story though, because I think we do bedtime stories for children to kind of unwind them and get them off to bed. But does anyone ever read you a bedtime story? So
it is. I
that's
think something like that is really useful if you are having trouble sleeping as well, isn't it? Or even listening to music, calming music and things like that. That's all good. That's all really useful.
yeah. And I wholeheartedly agree about enough sleep and a good sleep, and that is a hard thing to achieve, but it's so vital how we're able to function with a good night's sleep versus without a good night's sleep.
Yeah, I mean, things that if you can't sleep, things that are really, really grim sometimes, don't they? And then in the morning you think, why was that so why did that look so bad? Whereas in the reality of daytime, it doesn't look quite so bad. So
exactly.
I've just started diamond art. I wonder what that is.
I've heard, so I've not tried diamond art yet, but I've heard lots of people that's found it very relaxing. So if you don't know what diamond art is, you get a picture essentially, and you can buy a kit with a picture and little tiny, I think they're Swarovski crystals or little diamonds or what have you, and a wee sticky device. And that's what you do, is you just put your sticky dots on the picture, and then you create a 3D picture.
Wow.
As well, so it'll obviously have a bit of texture to it, and it'll be quite shiny. But apparently, and I can completely understand this, that just the art of just selecting your thing, your wee gem, and placing it on your picture is just quite therapeutic. It's it requires a bit of focus, but nothing too much, and it's and then at the end you've got something to show. And the kids start at £3 on eBay, so there you go. It's not even that an expensive hobby to get started in.
It sounds expensive, doesn't it, when you think about diamond art? It does sound.
I know. We'll save the real diamonds for something else. But I know loads of people who are into it.
Yeah, well, I've never heard of it. That's it, but it does ring a bit of a bell with me, because sometimes how things pop up on Facebook, and one of the things that pops up sometimes on mine is a sort of a crystal thing, and it's some sort of group, and they just hold up really big sort of chunks of crystal, and it's gorgeous, and some of the colors, they just kind of splint it around. It's beautiful. It really, and you can totally mesmerizing. So there is something sparkly.
So I mean, I love anything sparkly anyways, but I think that's the key element to self-care, and especially with a hobby, is don't, if it doesn't bring you joy, and if it doesn't make you relax, then it's not necessarily for you. But actually there's so much out there that can be used for anyone. I just saw something, so I've got the chat open now as well, and I just saw someone post something about your cousin using diamond art as he's autistic, and he's made really something nice for others as well. And I think it's nice when you can make something, take pride in it, and then also give it to someone, also something to do while recovering from a broken back. And if you think a lot of elderly people who are maybe have less mobility or less options to go out in the winter time because, like I say, of the ice and the bad weather, not to be stereotypical, because I know plenty of them who don't have limited options. So there's all ends of the spectrum. But when you think of anyone really who needs something to do during the winter, something like that, that's quite easy and therapeutic.
Fantastic, very good. Well, hopefully people can submit a few more questions, or I'll say if anyone wants the option to speak, that's absolutely fine. I mean, if I may ask a sort of a question as well, if that's okay. Really, I'm thinking about, obviously, the focus of our organisation is very much on older people, and I just wondered how much of a challenge it is, for example, where you have an elderly or an older couple who are kind of almost caring for each other. I just wondered how easy that is to engage with those sort of dynamics, I guess.
Yeah, and those dynamics can be quite challenging. I'm glad you brought that up because I hadn't intended to talk about it and it completely went out of my
Okay.
mind. But you're right, is that sometimes you are also you are a carer, but you also have someone caring for you as a cared for, and especially in the couple situations. And that can be good in a way in terms of having a better understanding and mutual support. So the caring role isn't necessarily as one-sided as it can be sometimes, where it's constantly carer to cared for. But likewise, sometimes it can present challenges as well. And that's really when those tips about self-care that work for carers and cared for really come into play, because it is about supporting both parts, and sometimes when we talk about things it's easy to compartmentalize them and make them black and white, but actually real life is so much more complicated than that,
It certainly
isn't
is.
it?
Yeah.
And you hear about couples that look after each other, or for instance, actually when my gran was elderly and she was on her own, she had a neighbor, he was on his own, and they phoned each other every single night at 8 o'clock to check in. And if they weren't going to make 8 o'clock check-in, they had um they phoned each other earlier in the day to say, I'll miss 8 o'clock check-in. But and that was just so you hear people, that's obviously a different caring role than a couple, but actually a lot of times the carers are the cared for as well, especially in elderly couples, and offering both support. And we definitely would make sure that everybody felt supported here at Vocal, and some of our carers are quite elderly, and
But I like that solution because it's one that they've kind of arranged it. They haven't had it imposed on them, have they? So they've arranged it themselves. That's just brilliant, isn't it? So,
yeah, I think for anybody and that, and especially we all want to be involved
yeah,
in what, especially things so one of our big things is what matters to the person we're working with, and what are their personal outcomes, because it's not about doing things to people, it's with. And especially if you're working in partnership and you're working with a couple who are both carers and cared for, is kind of a, what do you both need to thrive in the caring relationship, and what support would help you, because a lot of what we do is just helping people access the support and information that they need. And we're not technically in advocacy, but a lot of it is built around that.
I suppose you have to be careful though that there isn't sort of some things getting hidden, because I think that there can be a danger, especially and I'm thinking about a situation that I know about where the couple have been married for years and years and years. We're literally talking about sort of 50 odd years, and they were very much kind of covering up for each other's sort of frailties, and so they didn't want people in social work involved. They didn't want people involved, so that must be making it really, really difficult to kind of to access services when you're kind of both covering up for each other.
Yeah, and you're right about that, kind of trying to hide it, because you don't want to, you don't want, a lot of couples don't want to worry about getting separated,
No.
or what happens if if my partner goes into the care home but they don't take me, or there's not a place for me, or I get sent to, there's all that. And so you're right, there's a lot of covering up for each other. And I suppose, in some respects, and maybe not now at the minute, but some of our care support team does house calls and house visits. So you see people in their homes, and because we're voluntary sector and they've chosen to engage with us, we're maybe a bit, don't get me wrong, obviously if there's social work concerns, we've got processes for all that.
Yes.
But it's maybe a bit easier to be a bit more honest with us than
Yeah.
someone you're afraid.
That's a very good point, and that's maybe something for third sector organisations can kind of take advantage of, that they have got an easier way in. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Some so I just saw someone asking for the slides. Yes, absolutely. Well, sorry, I'll say yes from my point of view.
Yep.
Ryan, I'm happy to pass
Yep.
on the slides if you're happy to pass them on.
Fine. Yep.
Some really nice things about self-care though. Someone making a comment about making a chicken and rice soup that her mum used to make, finally getting the formula correct. And I love that as a form of self-care and a form of caring, because nothing shows that you care, especially something like a chicken and rice soup, quite a comforty food as well. And
this time of year especially. Oh, that sounds lovely.
yeah, and warms you up in the winter time, keeps you healthy, and connects you back to healthier times or happier times. Sorry.
Someone said there'll be some people here who are too young to know what it is, but it says I bought myself in a charity shop a spirograph. I remember a spirograph, but I'm sure there'll be people thinking, what on earth's that? Do you know what spirograph is, Tracy?
Yeah, I do. I remember desperately coveting one when I was young,
Yeah,
desperately, and I do believe one Christmas I did get a spirograph, and I thought I'd made it in life.
yes.
You know,
That's
against
the thing with circles, isn't it? You draw around the circle.
yeah,
And there's a bit
yeah,
of
yeah, and
practice,
it
right?
was you put your pen in like the special
Yeah,
template, and it just
brilliant.
goes around. Again, it's back to that. You know, I'm a firm believer in kind of making and doing and hands busy, kind of stuff. I'm finding that really therapeutic and calming, um,
Absolutely.
and passing the time as well. So
Yeah, and it can, yeah, exactly. You've
yeah.
got something to keep as well. Where could I apply to become a telephone volunteer, please? Well, I'm going to do a plug for our organisation, but I don't know if Tracy, you also have volunteers. We certainly have volunteers. We're always keen to get volunteers. We do have telephones. We have people that will telephone older people. So if you are interested, that'd be fantastic. Please get in touch. I don't know, Tracy, do you have volunteers as well? Look.
Yeah, Vocal does have volunteers. I'm not sure we're recruiting at the minute, to tell you the truth, but if you were in Edinburgh or Midlothian, and you're interested in volunteering, just get in touch with Vocal through our website, and we'll get back to you.
Brilliant.
Range of volunteer opportunities with us as well.
Absolutely. No, I think I said at the beginning, you know, that we are, our organisation's got Scotland-wide reach. So although we are kind of based in Fife, and we do have a telephone, we're calling it a telephone check-in service. So it's about phoning in to check on people to make sure they're okay. We also have a helpline as well. So if either of those options are of interest, then please do get in touch. That'd be great. You know, we're always looking for volunteers, definitely. So. Have we got any other questions? Oh, there we go. Yeah, someone's put their details. Thank you very much for that. I'll definitely get in touch. Thank you. Yep. I won't share those, obviously, for GDPR reasons.
I know you're almost afraid now what details you can share and can't share, but
absolutely great stuff. Thank you. Anything else? Anyone else wants to ask a question on? Or I think you kind of some things you talked about, the emergency planning rang a bit of bell with me. I think that's probably something that a lot of carers, it's obviously done for the person they're cared for's benefit, but it also gives the carer a bit of a peace of mind.
Yeah, I think that's something we find a lot of people haven't thought about.
Yes.
And then obviously something happens and you think, oh my goodness, we haven't written that down. And it is about having it written down and making sure that people know where and how to access it. And especially, you know, at the minute there could be all sorts of emergencies. So it is just a safety net. But yeah, and sometimes we think about it as the emergency plan for the person I care for, but actually it's also the emergency plan for the carer, because what happens as a carer if I can't make it to see my dad or my mom or my gran or my, you know, who's going to, or if I organise the weekly food shop and all of a sudden, you know, I'm not able to arrange for their Tesco delivery to go.
Exactly.
What happens? So it keeps everyone safe and just kind of sets out, and then someone's checking up on it. So yeah, like I said in the presentation, Enable has got all the information and all the forms you need to create one and the support. But I know our care support team can help people with that. And I'm sure any carer centre across Scotland would be able to help you come up with an emergency plan for both yourself and the person you care for.
Great stuff. Thank you very much. Don't think there's any more conversation or chat. I don't want to make sure that everyone don't want to miss out on anything. I don't think so. So we are going to share the slides. That's fine. Anyone want to share the chicken and rice soup? That's if anyone wants to share that recipe. That sounds really nice. Please do.
Don't know about you, but this is the time too where all the family recipes tend to make a reappearance, whether or not the families that we used to share them with were able to see them or they're still with us. I know I've been perfecting some of the it won't be Christmas without dishes.
I know. Yes, exactly. Or as my mum, who always has Christmas pudding, and she absolutely hates Christmas pudding, but she always has a Christmas pudding every year. It's bizarre. Yes.
Feel like you need to, but food gives us. I mean, I didn't. You know, I was going to go into a bit in the presentation. I chose not to about physical safety and emotional safety and kind of all the different kinds of safety, but food gives us both the physical safety from keeping us nourished, but emotional as well. It connects us back to, like you know, those happier times or different times. So food is a vital part of keeping yourself safe and someone else safe.
Absolutely, exactly. So Okay, everybody. So thank you so much, Tracy. I can't thank you enough. That's been really, really good, really interesting, very informative. So it's been a pleasure to do this today. So thank you very much. If there's got no other questions or other comments, we'll draw the webinar to a close. So thank you all very much for joining us. I hope you enjoyed it and got something out of it today. If anyone's got any questions, then please let me know. I should be able to email, I will be able to email all the slides. Tracy very kindly said it's okay to email the slides around to people. But if anyone's got any questions, we're hoping to do more. I hate to do a wet plug, but we're hoping to do more of these webinars because they're having much more successful than we thought they were going to be. Really, really good to do. So if anyone's got any thoughts about a webinar choice that they'd like to do, then let us know as well, because we'd like to do more of these. And probably won't be this side of Christmas because, as Tracy and I were talking about, everything's kind of winding down for Christmas now. So, but certainly early in the new year, we'll be doing more of these. So if anyone's got any suggestions or any offers or any organisations that they think might do these, that's absolutely brilliant. So please get in touch. So, thank you again. Thank you again, Tracy. That's been great. And
Thank you, everyone.
speak to you all later. Take care. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Okay. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.